Okay, so last week I had you guys watch something about college or not to college, and I was reading you guys' comments. Some of you guys said, "Yeah, I plan on going to college." Many of you said, "No, I'm not planning on college." And yeah, I said college is not for everybody. Now, one college I'm going to use here, the website I'm going to use is the website for Taft College. One of our local colleges. I use their website because I work for them. I teach at Taft College as well. So I'm very familiarized with their website. That's the reason why I'm using their website. Now, when we go to taftcollege.edu, we get here. Now, one thing I want us to go through, if you scroll down, like I'm sharing my screen here, we go in the degrees that Taft College offers. We go in the certificates, and then we can see the cool thing about this is it's going to tell us what we need to accomplish our goals, whether I'm looking for a degree, whether I'm looking for a certificate, and then what can I expect to get paid? For example, let me check this first one, Administration of Justice degree for transfer. So I click on it, and then it says the description. It gives me a little description, what I need to do if that's my interest, my earning potential. I have a potential salary of 33,538. That's a 2 year after graduating from Taft College, with expected increases to 44,412 at 5 years. So cool. It gives me the income that I'm expected to get. And then it gives me the requirements and so on and so forth. I know many said I'm not going to college. So let me not talk about college, exactly all the programs here. Let me talk about something that is very interesting here. I'm gonna call it the cost of living. Okay, we're gonna talk about today is the cost of living. So how, like, you gotta start thinking, what am I gonna do once I finish high school? Like, that should be some, few months for some of you guys. What am I gonna do when I finish high school? Now, getting a job, like people can say, I'm just gonna get a simple job. I can be a cashier at a gas station, or I can be working at fast food, because right now you live with your parents. Many of you, if that's a mentality that you have, I live with my parents, so I don't need to get paid that much. So just fast food restaurant, that's what I see. And I don't know, we'll see from there. If that's a short goal, just to get some money right now, nothing wrong with it. Now you gotta start planning sometime soon. What are you gonna do after that? Because you're not gonna be living with your parents, and you're not gonna be single with no kids for a long time, right? You gotta be a little realistic. If your mentality, to be honest, I've seen people that have said, I'm just gonna work at McDonald's for a little bit, and then years pass, and yeah, they might leave McDonald's, but then they go to work at Taco Bell. So it's like it's pretty much the same thing. It's very much the same thing. You gotta think, what do I want to do? And then you gotta start working on that sometime soon. Like I said, the cost of living is very, very important. So you might be like, well, what does that mean? Well, you gotta pay for everything, but we gotta look at our income. How much are you planning on making? So I decided to do a little thing here, and I was like, well, if looking at the ideas, looking at some places here in our website from Taft College, I found a couple of jobs. Reporting degree gives me a potential of 60,380. That's a quick certificate that I can be doing the reports in court. I could be a dental hygienist. That's one of our main programs in Taft. That's why I picked that one. They make about 95,500 a year. A preschool teacher, that's a certificate that takes about 2 years, 2 years to get. Now, preschool teachers don't work full time. Okay, they work about 5 or 6 hours a day. So their income is 30,210. But then I came and I was like, well, what's the minimum wage in Bakersfield? The minimum wage in Bakersfield right now is 16.90 per hour, $16.90. So I was like, how much are they expecting to make in a year? 35,152. You might be wondering, how did I get that number? Well, what I did is I look at how much people make per hour. So I did 16.90, and I multiply this by 40, because full-time people usually work 40 hours per week. So if I multiply that, that's going to give me the income for a week. And then I multiply this by 52 because there are 52 weeks in a year. So I multiply that out and it gave me 35,152. So that's something you guys can do for potential income, hourly paid times how many hours per week, and then times 52. Again, because there are 52 weeks in a year. Now, some people tend to do just multiplied hours times, income times hours, and then times four. Instead of the 52, they time this by four to have an estimation how much they're going to make in a month. Well, I'm going to say that's a good estimation, but not that great. Okay. Because if you look at 4 weeks per month, you're saying the year it has 48 weeks, but it actually has 52. So we were off by 4 weeks. Instead, look at it by times 52. Right now, we're looking at this as a yearly income. We'll talk about it monthly income in a little bit. Okay. So this is what we're expected to make in a year. We're like, okay, well, minimum wage makes more than a preschool teacher. Yeah, because the minimum wage, you're working 40 hours a week, where the preschool teacher is not. Okay, they're working less. But then I decided to go to a website. I just went to Google and I literally look for jobs. I clicked in. Let me show you guys what I did. Oh, this thing froze for a minute. Oh, okay, if you can hear me, my screen just froze for a minute, so I'm just waiting on this. Gotta love technology sometimes. Okay, so I just went to Google and I typed in, what do you guys, high paying jobs in Bakersfield without a degree. And it gave me some high paying jobs, some non-high paying jobs. I see Dunkin' Donuts, they offer $20 an hour. They're hiring right now, full time and part time. I see cashiering at Vallarta, 1716 to 2060 an hour. So I came in, I was like, you know what? I want to estimate. Let's just say that these two pay about $20 an hour. And let's say I work 40 hours a week. And I'm going to multiply this by 52. And it gives me that if I work there, my potential income for a year is 41,600. There's also shares that detentions deputy trainee. They offer full time, but I see that they offer $4,122 with 32 cents a month. Okay, so that's already a month. So I'm gonna go 4,122.32 times 12 because there are 12 months in a year. And it says if I go there, I expect to make $49,467 with 84 cents. Now, Dave and Buster's also hiring. It says part-time, but for the purpose, I'm gonna say full-time. They're hiring from $16 to $17.50. So let's say they started me at $17.50 and I work 40 hours a week and I work all weeks of the year. So my annual income I'm expecting to make $36,400. And then a barista at a cafe makes $16.90. Well, that's minimum wage. I showed you guys earlier, they expected to make 35,152. So having these jobs, let me add them. Let me add them here. Okay, there they are. I already added these two amounts here. Actually, no, not that one. here. These are my incomes. My bad. Okay, so these are my incomes. So Bakersfield minimum wage, cashiering, sheriff detention deputy trainer. That's how much I'm expecting to make a year. However, I gotta be honest. They're not gonna give you all your money, right? We gotta pay taxes. There are some deductions. There are some deductions. If you guys want to try this at home, ask your parents, mom, pops, how much do you get paid per hour? Let's assume they work 40 hours a week. So multiply by 40, multiply by 52, and then you're like, oh, this is how much you make in a year. But like I said, they're gonna take taxes. We gotta be honest, they're gonna take taxes. Now, usually it varies. It varies a little. So with your parents might be a little bit different, but usually they take about the 30% of our income. That's how much we lose in taxes. That's like taxes, Social Security, healthcare, or what they deduct. So from deductions, it's usually about 30% of our income. So what I'm going to do for us to know how much we're taking home, I'm going to multiply each of these numbers because I'm checking all these jobs here. I'm going to multiply each of these numbers times 0.70. Okay. So for example, this first one, I'm going to go multiplied by 0.70 because that's 70%, right? They take 30% of our checks. So that means I keep 70%. I'll do it to each of these. I'm not going to do it here, but I already did this. But this is basically what I did. To each of these, I multiply by point 70. And I'm going to say the court reporting degree, they take home about 42,266. And then you guys can see how much each of them take home in a year. Now, when we think about it, our payments are done monthly, right? We don't pay things in a year, we pay things monthly. So, what I'm going to do to see how much they take a month, each of these salaries, let me divide it by 12 because there are 12 months in a year. So, the take home value, let me divide it by 12 because that's the monthly income. And I'm going to say each of these jobs, this is how much they take a year, a month. So my court reporting degree, they take about 3,522 a month. Dental hygienist takes home about 5,570. So you guys can see how much they take home each month. Okay. Now I call this the cost of living, right? I said this was the cost of living. Now we just look at how much you're expected to make in a month. But why do we make money? Because we're going to be paying things. So let's take a look at the cost of living. I went to realtor.com and I asked, well, how much are the rents? Let's say I wanted to rent here. Let's say I wanted to rent something. As you guys can see, I found some apartments. I found apartments, and those are the monthly payments. And then I was like, well, what if I get a house? Because I see one of these apartments, this one right here, 1,045, but the area is 500 square feet. Now, for you guys to have an idea, let's say this is a rectangle. You go 25 feet with one side and 20 the other side. So this is an apartment that is a 25 by 20. You guys can get a measuring tape. Just calculate, just look, 25 one side, 20 on the other side. That's the whole apartment. Now, this one's a little bit bigger. This one you can go 40 by 20. That's what gives us 800. So the top are apartments, the bottom are houses. When you start thinking of the future, where you're gonna live, don't think right now just you. Think of a family. Okay, where do I want to live? Because eventually I'm gonna have a family. Right now you may not, or hopefully you don't, but eventually you will. So like I said, you gotta start planning that. Then I went to apartments.com. In here they give us a good estimation. They give us an average of how much is the cost of living. I actually click on renter. You could click on homeowner, married couple with children under 6, married couple with children 6 to 17, and they gave me how much is the average of the expense here in Bakersfield. Now groceries says 723 per month. Okay, groceries, we're just talking about food. Okay, that's how much family spending about in a month. Now, housing, they say the rent is about 2,142. Now, utilities. Utilities includes all the bills that you have to pay. That's electricity, water, gas, phone. So this is actually including our phone. So they're saying a family's paying about 632 per month. Again, when you think about it individually, you may not pay that if you're a single person. But if you're just thinking of what I'm going to do tomorrow, and then later on you have family and you still have to like teenagers income, you're going to be struggling a little. So like I said, utilities, this is how much you're expected. Now transportation, they said, is 489 per month. Now transportation doesn't include just gas. That actually includes if you still making payments on your card, that's how much people paid. But more than anything, gas gas is what you needed for the car, but oil changes, tires, like everything that a car needs. People spend about 489 per month. Now, healthcare, people going to the doctor, people spend about $130 per month. And then goods and services. What is goods and services? Well, services or goods are basically like shampoo, soap, detergent, things that you need. And then, but also goods, we mean like having fun, going to the movies. You have birthday parties that you buy presents to. So all these, that's what they mean with goods. So what I decided to do, I added all these. Again, this is just an average. This is an average. When I added all this, it added up to 5,248. And I was like, okay, that's how much people are expected to make. Average, the cost of living in Bakersfield, you have to be taking home 5,248. But then coming back to our jobs that we were looking at earlier, core reporting degree, they take home 3,522. That's not 5,248. Dental hygienist, yeah, they make the 5,248 and keep some extras. Preschool teacher cannot afford the cost of living. Minimum wage is going to struggle a lot. You might need to have two jobs. So instead of working 40 hours a week, you're working 80 hours a week. You're working in a day, you're working 16 hours in a day. Now, can there be expenses that can be deducted? Coming back to here, yeah, you will have to make adjustments if you don't make enough. Groceries, okay, we don't have to eat meat every day. Utilities, maybe just one home, one phone for everybody. Teenagers don't have phones, so not everybody. So it's okay. We're struggling. There are things that we can cut later on. But like I said, I'm just giving you guys an idea how much is the cost of living. So it's something for you guys to think about. But then I decided to look at some jobs. I just went to Google and I went Google in a random search. How much are the averages in other jobs? Just to have an idea. Not trying to influence your thinking in any way, but I was like, I just Googled random jobs. Gardener. According to Google, Gardener in Bakersfield makes about 21.22 to 22.15 per hour, which translates to about 44,000 to 46,000 annually. That gives me hourly rates, annual salary. Median range is basically the one in the middle. So 50% of the people make less and 50% make more. So it's right in the middle. That's what median means. 90th percentile means 90% of people make less. So 90 percentile of gardeners make about $62,050 a year. Okay. So I was just like, oh, how about a gardener? So just figured I will ask that. But then I was like, how about a police officer? How much did the police officer make? So I literally went, Google, what's the average income of a police officer in Bakersfield? According to Google, it says the police officer makes about 64,000 to 85,000 a year, with many officers and experienced staff, such as sergeants, earning over $100,000 a year. So I'm like, okay, that's now I see how much cops make. Then I said, well, what about a firefighter? So Google, what's the average income of a firefighter? And it says the firefighter is expected to make between 65,786 to 76,815. Can Google be off a little bit? Probably yes, but it's pretty accurate. It's not that off. Okay. So gives us an idea how much we're going to be making. But then I said, okay, we saw jobs here, but I know doctors make a lot of money. So just for curiosity, I said, Google, what's the average income uh, of a doctor in Bakersfield? And it said doctors in Bakersfield make between 234,000 and 306,000 annually. And I was like, whoa. Well, thinking of the 234,000, and I said, well, let's say they keep 70% because the taxes and all that stuff, and then they divide it by 12. I was like, well, a doctor takes home about 13,650 a year. Remember how our income was 5,248? Yeah, these doctors are living way off. But they're living well. Now, again, my intention is not for you to necessarily have to get a degree. It's for you to be thinking, what are you going to be doing in the future? My idea for this lesson is you got to plan for your future. I went to go ask my chat GPT, my friend. I was like, give me a picture for plan for your future. Don't judge the picture. It's just a chat GPT picture. But really, we got to start thinking, what are we going to do? And again, don't think of a job that you're going to do for just next year or the year after. Think of your future. What job do you see holding or having when you have a family to feed?